return on investment in terms of meeting goals? So like if somebody wants to crush it next year, like where do you think they should look first for the immediate kind of like?
Have you seen this image? You probably have seen it on Twitter or X and other places. It's Ikagi, IKAGI. It's a Japanese phrase, and it's sort of this amazing Venn diagram of like passion, purpose,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. Right. So in the short term, for a lot of organizations, simply raising the bar on accountability will drive the most for the most companies. Accountability in and of itself is not sufficient, because if people are being held accountable, but it's not connected to what truly motivates them, and motivation goes so far beyond compensation. Compensation is about one of 12 motivating factors we look at.
Always blows my mind that it's like not the top.
Right. And there are multiple. And what's more, managers typically don't understand the negative motivators. So we always just think, all right, here's a bone, go fetch it. And they're going to run hard. And we don't realize we need to be aware of these other things that are actually demotivating our people. And it's not just company culture. It might be what's going on at home. And if a manager is not aware of that, they can't help mitigate the impact it has on sales performance. So I would say you start with accountability, but longer term, we have to understand motivation. And it's not throw a contest at them all the time to keep them going, because that's not truly sustainable. So
when it comes to accountability, when you are evaluating the organization, when do you know like somebody's got it right? And when do you think like what's on the checklist of accountability? Like you're like, yep, you got this, versus, ooh, you gotta, like, if you don't have this and this and this, you gotta work on your accountability. Is there, I don't know.
I would say the first thing we look for is, do they tolerate excuses? And sometimes that comes from the top. If the leaders make excuses, the people know it's okay to make excuses. So I posted something today about strong organizations, and it's really hard to have top performers and bottom performers coexist, because the bottom performers feel bad about themselves and they resent top performers because it exposes them. Top performers, when they see bottom performers, they start to question if the company really values them.
Yeah.
Like, why are you going to keep these people around and let them slide? And I'm killing myself. It sends a mixed message. So when we look at this, I look for, do you allow excuse making? And then we start to look at what just happened. Sorry.
You're good. Don't go anywhere. You're good.
Then the other thing we look at is, do they have a very specific item that people are held accountable to? So most people, they oversimplify accountability to, did you make your calls? Well, let's pretend you're managing me. Making calls may not be the issue. You might actually need to hold me accountable to being tougher in my meetings. So here's an example, and you and I know about this, and you look for it when you hire. I might not be willing to have conversations about money in meetings. So I might be a great prospector. I've got a client, they've got a guy who's a machine, but when you get him to certain places, he freezes. So you probably need to hold him accountable to preparing for that meeting in a certain way. Whereas they have another performer, and that rep doesn't prospect consistently. They run the meetings really well, but they don't prospect. So you actually have to hold that person accountable to that. So a good manager knows, what do I need to hold my people accountable to?
Because everybody's going to be different. Well,
right.
I mean, they'll have like the same things in terms of like, okay, maybe like the metrics may be the same, right, but like the things that trip them would be different. So hold on. The first is excuse making. So this may be a dumb question, but sometimes people are like, well, how do you know they're making excuses?
Right. Well, you hear it. So here's what anybody watching, so most of them are not coaching their people. And I know, because we evaluate organizations, and what passes for coaching is, I'm going to tell you what to do. And there's not a lot of role playing. There's not a lot of pre-call planning that involves, hey, what's your opening question? There's not a lot of debriefing other than, how did it end? right? How'd the call go? That's what people ask. That's their debriefing. So when I know there's no coaching going on, or if it's going on, it's not going on well, it's going to be a problem. What we want to look for is the sales rep comes to you. They just had an opportunity. They just had a sales call. If I'm Olga, I'm asking that rep, how did the call end? Now, if I ask, how did the call go? Everyone's going to say, good, looks good, feels good.
Happy ears. Yep.
Right. No one's actually going to say, we don't have a good chance. Here's what's wrong. Here's where I missed it. But let's pretend I ask somebody, how did the call end? And they say, well, they give me something that's anything other than, we have a very clear next step. We're moving forward to these things. I want to know, why did you get there and what could you have done better? Most people externalize and they're going to blame competition. They're going to blame the customer. We have to just start listening for excuses, and excuses are going to sound like, our internal process for contracting is getting in the way. Or they're going to say things like, it's just a really difficult prospect. Or they're going to say our competition came in and undercut us. All of those are excuses.
Yep.
Might be real, but generally we're saying, Olga, I didn't really have any control over what happened. There was nothing I could have done better. So when managers hear excuses, they need to call it out. And I'll tell you a quick story. So I was in a meeting with a sales rep. He was on my team at the time, and he was making excuses. And I just said, that sounds like an excuse. He lost his mind. And he fired back at me. We walked out of that meeting and he said, you're right. I've been making excuses. And he turned right then and there because someone was kind enough to him to say, you're underperforming because you tolerate mediocrity. So I would say in a culture of accountability, you just have to listen for excuses. You'll know you've got it.
And call them out on that, because that may be the kindest thing you'll ever do. And that could be the fastest way to hit your results that you want next year. So, okay. So first thing is excuses. Then you're talking about knowing how every rep, what makes them, I don't want to say tick, but like what makes them trip? What makes them trip in terms of like, is this, like for me back in the day, and I'm still working on this, is my emotional control, or, sometimes I get into my head and I think I know what the person's going to say next. And I'm like already in la la land. For some people, it may be they want to, please people, right? The need for approval thing or whatever. Or some people it's money weakness. So like there's all these things that, so how do you help your, I guess, customers figure out what trips who, like,
well,
a lot of people that they can
be walking through a process. So there are a handful of things you can do. Sometimes you need to observe your people. And it's really hard if there are any CEOs or business owners watching this and they manage the sales team. It's going to be difficult if that owner or that CEO manages the sales team, sells, and runs the rest of the business, because they aren't going to be able to give the time they really want. But here's what I'd say. A manager, whoever that is, whether that's a VP, a CRO, a director, whatever you call them these days, they need to observe the reps. They need to observe them in action to see what's happening. And they need to be able to understand the difference between a weakness in their skill set and then a selling weakness. And so you talk about, can we talk about money? Can we stay in the moment and listen? Do we need to be liked? So those are selling weaknesses. Over here, we need to look at the tactical weaknesses, right? Can they sell consultatively? Can they sell value? Can they quantify? Can they poke holes in an argument? Can they find missing pieces? And that there's some assessment tools. You and we've talked about those. There's also just observation. And one of the things that we'll do to kind of get all of this kicked off, and we're going to do this in the course, but we do this with our clients, is we say, you need to shape the environment. And I don't have an assessment tool for this. It's simply observation, but I'll sit with a manager and say, okay, here are your 8 reps. I want you to go through this and I want you to identify where this person is not living up to what you want to see from them. and I'm generally hoping that the managers I'm working with are good, decent people, and they are. But it's things like, are they proactive? Do they have the work ethic you need? Do they make excuses? Do they trust you? Do you trust them? So we look through all these things, and then we start to say, what do we need to work on to create the environment where everyone can perform at their best? Because if it's one where people were, they resent each other, they got nasty attitudes, they're short, coaching's not going to work.
Right.
Accountability's not going to work. So we have to shape the environment. And when managers shape their environment, they are 10 times more likely to hit their numbers than if they don't.
So in this course, you'll teach them how to like look at the team and do what you just talked about.
Right. And look, and I'm telling you, I'm not dissuading anybody from signing up because we do a lot of good work. It's not rocket science. It's just not things people do. We throw numbers at it and they're like, all right, let me get to my spreadsheets and my analysis. No, you actually got to look at the people, right? Warren Buffett says business is easy. It's the people that are hard. So, okay, is there a trust issue here? No one's going to take accountability from someone they don't trust. If they don't trust your intentions, that you care about them and want what's best, no one's going to, there might be an issue where they don't respect the expertise of the manager. And I will sometimes see someone who doesn't have a selling background trying to manage sales.
Oh,
There's always going to be a delta between what they're trying to do and what the salespeople will let them do.
So it's kind of coming full circle, right? So the setting the metrics, and a lot of times, like, let's say I want to grow my business, I want to double it next year, right? And then, okay, so doubling is we need to hit the numbers X, Y, and Z. But now it comes back to the people and understanding what's tripping all of your people, and you know how to help them. And then what? So what do you do from there?
Well, all right, let's pretend. Let's think about this. We know there are numbers that if we're going to sell, we need to double our leads, we need to double our price, or we need to be able to double our conversion ratio. And hopefully what we're really doing is we're moving each one of those. Well, how you do that is not just tactics. So in a perfect world, what we're doing is we're continuing to improve how our people do those things.
Yep.
But we're also getting better people in. And I've worked with clients that you place the salespeople and they outperformed their peers because we had better talent to work with and they outperform their peers. So I know, okay, I got a double here, here, or here, right? I know that, but it's not so much as just saying, hey, Adam, go close twice as many. My manager has to know, does Adam have a skill set issue or does he have a weakness? And frankly, is Adam the right guy? Does he have what it takes to go close this business or prospect? And they've got to hold me accountable to doing the things if I'm the right person. Well, not everybody can go turn over the whole sales team and start all over and not have a drop off. So the manager needs to understand how to move these people producing $1 million a year to get them producing 1.2 or 1.3. And you and I would tell them, you need to be looking to bring new people in and raise the level of talent, because as you bring in better talent, it will raise everyone else. I'll tell you a quick story. So we'll probably tell this story in the program. My colleague Brandon is going to help deliver some of this. He was in a company where the average inside rep did $60,000 in new business a month. $60,000. Not bad. That's ARR. That's 720 grand annualized, just year one. They brought in someone new, and this guy was he was a cut above. And his first month, he did 100 grand. And they thought, well, he got lucky. Second month, he does 120. No, he does 140. And he finally kind of flattened out around 150, 170 every month. Here's what happened. When everybody saw that, this better talent who was managed well, who was coached, who applied the training. Look, I'm in the training business, but training works with the right management. And what we saw with this guy was that 60,000 group, all came up to 100 grand because this guy had set a new bar and they're like, well, it's doable.
He just ran the, what is it, a 4-minute mile or whatever? So
Yeah, exactly.
Now
and so else like, we can run a 4-minute mile, we're not going to die.
Yeah.
So I look at this, that a manager's job in the world of sales is you have to love it, or at least be committed to it, because it's hard, it's redundant. You really want to go on to all this other strategic stuff, but it's a lot of coaching. It's a lot of accountability. It's a lot of, to some degree, therapist that you're playing. You're going to work with these people. You're in the field. It's not sexy. It's hard work, but that's how you double, right? That's how you double your lead flow, or double your close rate, or double your price. You've just got your people to be better, but it doesn't happen because you send them to a 2-day course.